I've done is made a simple mission here. I've placed an entity, an airfield entity called runway down. Or it's just a classic airfield entity, and I've used that to line it up with the runway. Left clicked and lined it up with the runway and placed it on the threshold. I came in here and typed in call sign and named it VLY31. Then I went into the mission builder and got myself a hawk from the aircraft and dragged that over here. And what I did was I did a couple of things. I typed in call here and changed its call sign to Victor19 because that's kind of useful. I typed in ground and ticked the on the ground box so that it wasn't in the air. I also typed in powered so that it was powered and it would take off immediately. And I also typed in its landing zone call sign, which was VLY-31, which is that, which means it will go and land on that. It will aim for that as its landing zone. So I might just move that a little bit further back on the threshold here now, which I do by pressing Control and left click and moving it. So I'm just going to save that. I did that, and then I also put in an entity of type known point. So I just went over here and dragged in one of those about the point at which we turn finals. For me, I just I called it with call sign finals. It doesn't matter. But I also put a little range ring around it of about 800 feet so that I could do a proximity check on that in a minute. Then what I did was I came to the scripting editor and added a script which I called circuit. I haven't put any triggers in, so I'm just going to click it to execute it, but we could put a time trigger in. And then I've got it to, at first, take off, and I assigned that tactic takeoff, which is navigation 1, tactic takeoff, and I assigned it to platform, Victor 19, and then added it to the list like that, and I said I want that to finish before it does anything else. Then I fiddled around with the Maeuver Aggressiveness, and that's in navigation 2. Went to Maeuver Aggressiveness for the different states. So it will be in a delta state, i.e. it's not following waypoints. And instead of having it standard or max performance or whatever, I customized it and just messed around a little bit with the turn rates. About 10 degrees per second puts, as I remember it, me in roughly the right downwind position at valley. Gave the climb rate of 15 degrees and a descent of 8 degrees per second. Just fiddling around with it, and again I had to go and assign that to a platform. So I assigned it to Victor 19 and added it to the list. I made sure that it, once it's taken off, that it goes into a delta maneuver mode, i.e. it's not following waypoints. So again, I went to navigation 1, clicked delta, went to Victor 19 and added it to the list. And then, of course, once we've taken off, we're shooting for two parameters, 190 knots and 1,000 feet. So again, I went to navigation 1 and said speed to 190 knots, Victor 19, and it's going to use its aerodynamic model to determine when it gets there. Of course, those are all editable by users as well, so you can change, how fast it gets to those speeds. But 190 knots, Victor 19. I haven't said wait until that finishes before doing anything else. So simultaneously, it's going to set the altitude. So again, in navigation 1, 1,000 feet, assigned to Victor 19 to 1,000 feet. And I haven't said wait until that finishes either. What I have done is said delay until Victor 19's at 500 feet and then turn is what I'm going to do. So what I did there was I went delay until there, and then I have to select a trigger. And it wasn't any of these. There's no altitude trigger in this first entity tab. I had to go to entity 2, select the entity in the list, Victor 19. Nothing, don't care about equipment, but I was searching through the properties and I went altitude AGL, and then I selected is greater than or equal to 500 feet. And so all that's doing, and I click OK twice now, is just waiting until that's true and then carrying on. And then I said turn right 180 degrees. There's no wind in this mission, so that's fine. So it turns right 180 degrees. And then that one I did say, I ticked the little box that said wait for action to finish. So nothing else will happen until that's complete. So it turns to 180 degrees. I said, wait until your speed's 190 knots in case it hasn't, already got there. Then wait 4 seconds. So this is me, simulating doing my downwind checks and, putting the gear and flap down. And then I just said set the speed to 160 knots. That happens a little bit early, so I might want to delay that a touche more, or maybe put in some interim speeds. And then I said, I put in another break here that says delay until Victor 19 is within 800 feet of this. And that's why I drew the 800-foot circle so I could check it. And so I did that again. So that's one of these delay until ones where you have to select a trigger. And that one is in entity 1. So it was Victor 19. And the thing that I'm checking proximity against was my known point, which I called finals. Really important to tick the ignore elevation difference box here, or else it's going to check total proximity. I'm only talking like plan view proximity, and I said is within 800 feet. And so that's just pausing everything until that happens. I said drop the speed to 150 knots, delay a second. So I'm just sort of tapering that speed off. And then I'm doing two things at the same time because I'm not ticking this box to say wait for action to finish. I'm going altitude to 300 feet for Victor 19, and at the same time turn right 180 degrees, Victor 19. And then I'm waiting a few seconds and I'm just bringing the speed back in the turn to 130 knots. And then basically I'm putting that brake in again to say until I've said just below 340 feet this time. So I went to entity properties and just said, just so when it drops below 340 feet. And then finally I'm assigning the tactic to land to Victor 19. And the only reason that works is because I assigned the landing zone call sign in that guy's properties to this landing zone. So I'm going to see if it works. So here comes my guy. I'll attach to him so I can see the metrics. So in my script, he's taking off. We said wait for that action to finish. So that nothing's going to happen until he's sort of cleared the runway. Then it sets that maneuver aggressiveness to those initial values of 15-degree turn rate and whatever it was. It will do that and set the maneuver mode to delta and set the speed to 190 and 1,000 feet. And then it's waiting until he gets to 500 feet, which is complete, and he's turning. And we can see the speed's now hit 190 knots and he's maintaining, and it's hit about 1,000 feet AGL and he's maintaining, and he's in his 180-degree turn, and it says wait for action to finish. As soon as that happens, we're just checking that the speed's 190 knots, and then we're waiting 6 seconds or 5 seconds. And when that happens, we're dropping the speed to 160, so down it comes here. And then we are then waiting until we're within 800 feet of the known point that I named finals downwind. And so that's just about to happen. And then it's setting speed to 150 knots, delaying a second. And then I've customized the maneuver aggressiveness again to try and match something that would be more like the finals turn. I've set a 300 feet, 180-degree turn, wait 3 seconds and bring the speed back to 130 knots. And then I've said wait until you're at less than 340 feet and then assign tactic land. So that should happen. That's a nice, not too bad, probably a bit tight on the turn. Could mess around with the maneuver values a bit there. And down he comes for his land. Ooh, nearly went into the runway. There we go. And I've got trails on in armor, which I press T to see, so I can actually, I can come out of here and just go and have a quick look, at his flight path around the circuit and, see what happened. And that, as they say, and he landed about there, which is about right for where we said. And that is that.